I asked 498 readers like you which has been your favorite book of this year, and these are the top 20 recommendations, the best of the best. And particularly I had such a great year. I read incredible books this year, starting with Grey Vampire, Hyperion, The Shadow of the Leviathan. There's been so many great books, but at the same time I had this feeling of I don't know what to pick up next, and the result was this list. And let me know what you think, but I am absolutely nuts about the ones that are in position number 2, in position number 4, which I've never had before, and also in position number 16. In position number 20, we have a trilogy that it's been here for a while now already, and it's just my cue again to give this author and this trilogy another go, because it's grimdark, it's funny, it's greedy, and some of the characters I really loved. And I'm talking about The First Law, and particularly The Last Argument of Kings, the third book in the First Law series, was recommended. And it was so because not only the characters are described in such a way, and I actually really loved the clock tower, but it seems that from book 2 onwards the pacing starts to make a little bit more sense. I thought book 1, the story was fine, but it was slightly slower, and I felt it was mainly a setting up book. But I know I'm in a minority here, so I definitely need to give this one another try. In position 19, we have a standalone that wins the heart of readers, because instead of being a political court intrigues in which we will have all of these assassinations and you need to be witty and need to be savage and ruthless, in here our main character wins because they have empathy and goodwill. And I'm talking about The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Arden. I actually started this one and DNF'd it a while ago, so I need to give this one another try because I know this is one that I will absolutely love. It's written by Catherine Arden and I absolutely adore her writing style, and also what I was reading I really loved. I perhaps was not in the mood, but since then I've got this book recommended time and time again, and I love how we will see in this story this court politics, personal growth, there's a lot of governance, and at the end of the day we're talking about a half goblin, half elf that needs to take the role of the emperor and face everything that comes, and they're so unprepared, so deep in I don't know what to do, that I feel very seen. I think it's a fantastic character to follow. In position number 18, we have a series that it's massive, and just recommending it, I feel it's like, yes, well done, we should be recommending these more. It's incredibly popular and everyone knows this by now. But I love when people are recommending different books in this series, and this was The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, which I am currently reading. So I had all of these confirmation bias in which when I was seeing this comment, I was like, yes, like Shadow Rising, it's incredible, Lord of Chaos. And I was like, yes. I'm starting book 8 right now, so let's see how that goes. But Wheel of Time is this massive series, 14 books long, in which you will get lost. There's a rich magic system, there's a lot of complexities in the world with the people, and there's everything that integrates, although at its core it's a story about good versus evil and the reluctant hero, this quest. And if you're one of those like me that I was not really sure if I should pick Wheel of Time because it's definitely a commitment, I can say start book 1. Very similar to Lord of the Rings, but it really has something. And from that point onward, I always have this sort of nostalgia when I'm coming back to these characters and their stories, and I just feel this pull to get and to continue reading. So hopefully if you start, you will feel it as well. In position 17, we have one of those trilogies that absolutely break your heart, and it just, after you read it, you're like, oh, I've read something great, but at the same time I'm just like exhausted. And this is by the Queen of Fantasy, Robin Hobb, the Farseer trilogy. In here, this is part of the realm of the Underlings universe, and what we have here is a story that you will not forget, because we will be following Fitz and how he needs to cope with situations and how he manages. He has this magical ability and he's able to commune with animals, which is not very well seen. It's a very character driven, slow paced story, but the events that happen are just heart-wrenching. At least that's what it seems. I only read book 1 so far. In position number 16, a series that I still need to get my hands on, but every time that this author comes in any recommendation, I'm like, yes, Tchaikovsky, like I'm just clapping, because he is such an incredible author. And I believe perhaps on the sci-fi world he's more known due to the Children of Time series, which I cannot read because I'm terrified about ants and spiders and just like and that's the core focus. But in fantasy, I read a couple of his stories and I absolutely loved it. And in this one, we have the Tyrant Philosopher series. And I think the concept is so intriguing. And one of the great things about Tchaikovsky is that he's really imaginative. Like, how you come up with these ideas? Like, he clearly is a genius. And in here, we will be following the society. And the magic system is really linked to being a philosopher. So the philosophers have access to magic and they have become these tyrants, which were the main thing that at the beginning they wanted to avoid. And it seems that each of the books go through a slightly different structure. This first book is a city under occupation at the brink of revolution. Book 2 it's more about a war between different nations, and the third one, it's more of a civil war. So it's really changing the scope throughout the different books in the series, and I've heard wonders about these. So it's definitely one of those that I'm gonna read. In position 15, one of those series that is quickly escalating to become one of my favorites. Actually, I read book 2 this year. It's one of my favorites of this year so far. So again, like confirmation bias that people knows, and that these recommendations are really great. And I'm buying a lot of these books and adding them to my TBR ASAP. This one is The Shadow of the Leviathan by Robert Jackson Bennett, with the first one, The Tainted Cup, and the second one, which I don't have yet, A Drop of Corruption. I think these stories are fantastic, even if you're not sure if you will like this blend of humor and mystery and a very well-crafted magic system with a world building that it's changing, and it has this magic that revolves around plants or nature, and you can see that really ingrained. Even if hearing humor and murder mystery, it's not your cup of tea, just give this one a go, because the dynamic between the characters, it's incredible. I love how we have these kind of really naive character that he has this incredible memory, and he basically can take something and then engrave whatever is happening, and then he recalls all of these to like the mastermind, who is this woman that is like really rude, and she's incredibly smart. And although I really liked book 1, book 2 was absolutely fantastic. I was at the edge of my seat constantly. I wanted to keep reading, and it just basically, I found spaces, like I found myself just in the bathroom, just waiting, just reading, and I did not want to go out just to face reality. So definitely a story that if you're thinking of picking up, do so. Not only almost 500 readers recommend this, but I also recommend it. This one got 15 votes, and from here onwards we will see how the votes change, with the top rankings, like book 1, book 2 and 3 are like voted by like so many people. Position 14, one of my favorite books of this year so far, and it's a story that blends different POVs in a way that fascinated me. We have these militia, we have also these detective quests, and also these novel, and you follow them, and they are really nuanced, that really gray, and it feels realistic. At the same time, it feels a blend of horror and fantasy, and I love it. And that is Grave Empire by Richard Swan, which is the beginning of a new trilogy. Grave Empire was mentioned 18 times. This is the same author as The Empire of the Wolf, which is one of my favorite series so far. And what this has that it's just really calling me is this blend of horror and fantasy. We will see this afterlife, the realm of the dead, and how it has an impact that there's a mystery, something is missing, they're gone quiet, and a terrible and then magic it's emerging. And you're terrified at the same time as piqued and intrigued on what is happening. At least that's what happened to me. Position 13, we have a story that I absolutely need to continue, because book 1 was great. I still need to read book 2, so this is like my sign to do so. It's been described as the perfect blend between Witcher, Castlevania, and it has these grim dark elements while has a little bit of humor. It's dark, it's this interview with a vampire kind of vibe, while having also this Last of Us feeling, and that is Empire of the Vampire by J. Christoph. Empire of the Vampire was mentioned 19 times. One day daylight started to fade, and as a result vampires came up, and we have these different people that are trying to chase them down to kill them, and we will have the story of one of those vampire killers, and we see that the story, it's really nuanced, how he is new in himself. And I thought at the beginning it was a weird book, but after I got like 150 pages, so it was not short, the time that it took me to get into the book. But after I got into that point, I absolutely loved it. The illustrations of this book are phenomenal. So if you're wondering if you need to buy this one physical, I really recommend you to, because it's beautiful, and it's a story that once the pieces are together, you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. Position number 12, a series that I still need to read, and this is The Covenant of Steel. Covenant of Steel was mentioned 20 times, which will be set in this medieval world, and it is very gritty. It leans more to this historical Europe kind of setting, and there's going to be a lot of religious themes, as we will have these different religions and the different prophecies that are emerging and that are competing with themselves. I've heard about this series a lot of good and polarizing things as well, so I reckon this is one of those series that are probably not for everyone. But also in the thread, people mentioned that it was great due to the political machinations between the different houses, the factions, and the power-hungry individuals. So if you like that side of it and going to books that are a little bit more nuanced, perhaps this is the one for you. Position number 11, we have a series that has conquered the hearts of a lot of readers because it's really addictive. And I started reading book 1 last year, and I read book 2, book 3, and I am currently in book 4. So I am definitely being also like dragged. And people describe this one as I've read 7 books in this series just in 1 month. Also, the audiobooks are praised so high, and this is Dungeon Crawler Carl, which I can say it's definitely not for everyone. Dungeon Crawler Carl was mentioned 21 times, so it's really tight. But if you like the idea of this RPG-like setting and just the concept of having fun while having a story that it's like very nuanced, and you see a lot of terrible and grim things, then this one is for you. It follows the premise that one day Earth collapses and like aliens have captured us, and as a result all of the humans are to live in this like subterranean world that it's collapsed, and there's these different trials, and those trials are like humans now need to survive, and all of these are televised, and there's a critic to social media, and as the story progresses we will have this story that becomes more quest-like and also a little bit more political and a little bit more humane, because in the first book you're like, oh, this is kind of funny, we have this main character, the sentient cat, and they go and kill, and they pass through different trials. But as the story progresses, it's not only that, which yes, that remains, but it's very nuanced, and there are scenes that are really heart-wrenching, or that at least for me were like really shocking. And I'm just starting book 4, so let me know which one is your favorite if you have already started this one. In position number 10, we have a novel that I haven't had before. In checking the different reviews, I found that it was also quite polarizing, or a very weird book to recommend and probably to review. It got 22 votes though, and it is The Death of the Author, which is kind of like a contemporary fantasy / sci-fi story in which we will be talking about race, heritage, disability, sexuality, and also conflict. And the idea is that we will have this character that in a terrible moment writes a story about how androids and the AI are taking the world after humanity has died, and from that point onwards it seems that there's like something happening, and it feels that the story is divided in how we follow the story of this author and how also we follow the proper story that she is writing. So it feels like this blend of stories, and that the lines between what's real in the story and what's imagination, it become a little bit blurred, which is a concept that I found intriguing, although I'm not sure if this one is for me. You let me know if you're gonna pick this one up. In position number 9, and with 25 mentioned, we have this story that it's enthralling because it has an African-inspired setting, and it's a story about revenge, which particularly for me, I'm not sure if this is my cup of tea, because at the end of the day, I'm like, just forgive. But a revenge story done well, it has a lot of elements that are intriguing me, and this one is Rage of Dragons, which not only it's at the top of this list because it has this unique setting, but we will also have this magical layer in which people is able to summon dragons, and together they are able to do incredible things, and these people are called the Gifted. It's a story that it's supposed to be very intense, very emotionally charged, and not necessarily beautiful but unforgettable. In position number 8, and also with 25 mentions, but these were also mentioned by a lot of different people across the thread, and I know this is just a very well loved series, and it is so because it has this unique world building, this setting that it's very post-apocalyptic, and we will have these seasons that every now and then are a menace to the earth and to civilization and are, you know, the end of us. This is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. It's supposed to be, I only read the first book, but it's supposed to be really rich, and the characters are very unique. And for me, this one did not work incredibly well because the first book at least has a choice in the narration which uses the second person, and for me that was very weird, and I was not able to really connect with the characters in this one. Although the magic system, it's really interesting, it's really rooted to earth. We will have this seismic elements, also this volcanic activity, and it's an allegory to climate change. So it's definitely an interesting take on fantasy, and I know a lot of readers find this mesmerizing and fascinating because it also blends different genres. In position number 7, with 34 mentions, we have a standalone that I really need to pick up because it sounds right down my alley, and it has this Arthurian element to it. So we will have this classic fantasy touch, but it's a twist because we will actually live in a setting in which Arthur has died, and instead of following these different lines that are the ones that are together with Arthur, we will follow different characters that are more like the outcast, and this is The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. At its core, we'll have this quest to search for Excalibur, or the Bright Sword, which has disappeared since Arthur's death, and as a result we will have this Celtic and Arthurian magic, which is something that, although classic, I feel it's very refreshing because it's not something that I'm very used to read. So definitely one that I'm also getting a look at, especially because I know there's a little bit of an uplifting tone as well, or this satiric tone, and it's something that I absolutely love in my stories. In position number 6, with 41 mention, we have a trilogy that is scratching the itch that I have from Gentleman Buster series. Like, I've read already book 1 till 3, and I'm like, now what? What I'm supposed to do now? Just waiting, dear Scott Lynch? So yes, and this is the Rook and the Rose series. It's really reminiscent to the Gentleman Bastard because not only we have a con artist, but also we will have this Venetian setting, and at the same time we will have this revenge story at its core. There's a lot of political intrigues, and we will have also this vigilante-like figure called the Rook, which is also a different layer that it's added into this story. But one of the elements that are really intriguing me from this series, and that I absolutely will pick up, not only because like a lot of people have recommended, but dear friends of mine, I like, you need to read this. But the thing is that the magic system seems fascinating. We will have these tarot-like divination magic, which is something that is a soft magic system that I tend to really like, and we will have the dream world involved, and I'm not sure how all of these will be played out, but I'm kind of like vibing with that idea of the tarot, the divinations, the fate, the destiny, while we have this Venetian setting. Like, it is giving me all of these vibes of, okay, I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to put it down. Actually, there was one people that recommended this series saying, okay, I read these books like really fast, I couldn't put it down, but I'm not sure what I read. So I'm not sure if there's a complex layer to it, or it was just that, you know, you were so entertained about what you're reading that you don't really get parts of it until the end. Anyway, in position number 5, and with 44 mentions, we have Malazan Book of the Fallen, which is one of those series that I need to pick this year. I'm incredibly scared because not only do I know that it is complex, that you were thrown into this very grim, dark, gritty world without notice, and that you need to follow up the different parts that are happening because the author, it's not going to be hand-holding you, explaining stuff. You need to pick that up. But also because there's a lot of different POVs that expand throughout the land. We will be seeing so many characters, and some of them like come to different paths. I know a lot of people that has mentioned that there are, you know, records and documents in which you can follow the tree of different characters, and I'm just like, cool, sounds interesting, but I'm really scared. However, this is one of those series that it's been mentioned because of the epicness, the realism, the nuanced characters, and how profound and philosophical it also is. So I think it's also something that I can really enjoy. So I will give this one a try, at least book 1, and we'll see where we go from here. In position number 4 with 46 mentions, and this is one of those that I mentioned at the beginning because this one I didn't know it's actually a release from this year, and it seems the reviews are really good, and it sounds right down my alley. I've already bought this one, and as soon as I have the book I will start reading it, and it reminds me a little bit of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, but plus a lot of humor, and it seems that we have a very unique storytelling side, and the one that is narrating is this magnificent creature, or at least that is how it's describing to itself. And we have here the Raven Scholar. This is the beginning of a series, and it's very promising because we will have this Raven Scholar that is just thrown into this mystery that she needs to unravel because the Emperor is dead. There's these different contenders that are doing these different tournaments in order to get to that role, and then one of them dies, and she needs to figure out what happens. There's a lot of different magic pieces involved, all of these different characters that she will need to investigate have different agendas. They are nuanced characters, and it seems that she's really lost and that this mission is taking her like by surprise. And I love that idea of following characters that are just learning their path. I find myself very seen by that. So this is one that I will absolutely be picking up. Let me know if you have already, because I definitely need to know. In position number 3 with 81 mentions, so you can already see how that has skyrocketed, and from here to the top one it's just going to be like this. It's a series that I started and that I reckon is getting more popularity now that this author is having another series that is getting popularity and that we already mentioned, and this is the Divine series by Robert Jackson Bennett, so the same author as The Shadow of the Leviathan. And we will follow here this same idea of we will have this thriller, this mystery at its core, this detective-esque like idea, but instead of having this world that it feels very natural and nature, it's connected to the magic. In here we will have these gods that lived previously and they had these powers that shaped the world, but then one day they will kill in an event called the Blink, and as a result there are remnants of these gods that still have power over the land and all of these, and we will need to discover a mystery, a thriller that is happening. I will give this one another try because I actually read this one, and although it was fine, I was not feeling it as much as with the Founders trilogy, which I read before from this author, and perhaps it was that I was not as prepared to these thriller mystery sides. It seems that now I'm falling in love with this subgenre thanks to The Shadow of the Leviathan by the same author, but also thanks to the Lamplight Murder Mysteries by Morgan Stan, with the first book Murder at Spinner Manor, which won the SPFBO last year, and it was great for me. So I will give this one another try and see where we go from here, because I remembered it was quite slow for my taste, but now I'm a different person now. In position number 2 is a story that I've heard great things about, but I actually didn't know much, and I think that's great because I don't want to go into the stories like really knowing a lot, although I did some research for this one, and it was mentioned 194 times. So almost 200 people were like, yes, this is a great series that you need to read, and it is the Black Tongue Thief series. It's really interesting because we will have these great characters and world building, and it feels like a blend of things that I will absolutely love. For starters, we have this humor, and it has been described as the wit of Scott Lynch, which I really love his writing style and how we handle, the discussions and the different dialogues between the characters, and that point of being really entertaining. It's slightly reminiscent of Kings of the Wild, so I'm definitely drawn into stories that have that humorous side to it, but at the same time we will have a lot of fantastical creatures involved. We will have krakens, we will have witches, we will have goblins, and we are in the aftermath on this war against the goblins, and society is recovering, and we will be following these two characters that just have different backgrounds, and they meet in the moment in which they needed the least, the fates are intertwined, and the story starts from there. We will also have an interesting take of magic, which will revolve also around tattoos, and I'm not sure how that works, but I'm like, yes, tattoos, which I don't have any, but I like the idea. I want to start. It seems that we will also have a fast-paced story with tension and with a lot of different twists and turns, which I am here for it. However, in the top one, the book that was mentioned 203 times, which is like a lot of times, we have one of my favorites of all time, and I cannot wait to read book 2, which will be released this year. I will reread book 1 because I need to get this one, and I'm just so happy that people are still reading these books this year, although it was released a couple of years ago, and that is The Will of the Many by James Ireton. What draws people to this story is the addictive element that this story has. The plot continuously moves forward, and you are thrown into this almost mystery that you need to unravel. There's also this idea of our main character will need to infiltrate this school in order to figure out what happens, but there's also a rebellion side to it. Our character is not what it seems. We have this society that is structured in a very hierarchical side, and the ones at the top are taking magic for those that are at the bottom, and it is really interesting because there's like, yes, I need to take power from you, but also kind of like take care, because if you die, I will have less power. So there's that element that was very interesting. There's also always a blend with this author between fantasy and sci-fi, which I really appreciated. There were some scenes that were absolutely heartbreaking, and it really landed like a punch to my heart. I have those scenes really ingrained in my mind. Like, I know where I was. Like, one, I was at the pool, other, I was at my couch. Like, I know where I was. It has translated this story into my life, and it's one of those books that once that I started it, I regretted having plans, and I actually resented having a life. So definitely, if you haven't picked this one already, it's one of those books that you will want to pick up. And thank you so much to my Patreons. All your names are in the description. Your support means the world to me. If you want to join us and enjoy a book club, a Wheel of Time read along, we have also a very cozy community in which we chat one-to-one because we see each other in like Google Meets, Hangouts, things like that. Please join us. You're welcome to do so. See you soon. Bye.